Welcome, folks, to our podcast, Therapy on Intention. I'm Zori with my co-host, Natalie. Say hi, Natalie.
Hello.
And this is the podcast where two therapists nerd out about our geeky passions and mental health. We have a very special guest here today, Dr. Breon Rose, counselor, professor, researcher, and our first and only ghost of the podcast, and also a fellow nerd. Hello, welcome back, Breon.
Hello. How you doing, Zori? How you doing, Natalie? Thank you for having me back.
Good. Thanks for being here. But before we catch up with him, Natalie, Breon, what have you been geeking out about lately?
All right, well, I can go first. So, I don't know if people are fans of their public library, but since moving to the suburbs, I have been fans of my public library. I think, city libraries are great and all, they have books and CDs and all that, but my library in my suburb has like an entire creative maker studio thing. So it's super cool where they'll have like 3D printing machines, they'll have sewing machines, they'll have like Cricut machines, like all these things so that you could just like create stuff. Um, so I've been in there a lot lately with my 1-year-old because she does like the library. There's a little like baby section, but I've been like in the maker studio just trying to learn how to do things. And one of the things that I have been trying to get into a little bit is figuring out how to do like 3D printing. And I feel like I'm behind the curve because lots of people have been doing 3D printing, but I've been doing like Photoshop, kind of Adobe Suite stuff for a very long time. And 3D models just happen to be one of those things where it's hard to orient my brain from like a 2D plane to a 3D plane. So lately I've been doing just kind of like a lot of research, trying to figure out like how to use like different programs to make it work. And then I'm hoping that before the summer's over, I get to print something at my library, get to 3D print something. So yeah, that's what I've been into. I have not actually made anything yet, to be clear.
Okay.
I'm just in the research phase, but I got super excited because I was talking to one of the people at the studio because he's like, yeah, lots of people have been into 3D printing this summer. So I've been helping a lot of newbies get started. So he just got me all hyped about it. So that's what I've been doing.
That's so cool. And yes, support your local libraries. There's so many things. Also free events usually. So yeah.
Free Wi-Fi, all the things. I love local libraries. I love libraries. Like it's definitely been something to help for me. So Natalie, love that. Do you have an idea of what you're gonna print?
I
Any
have no
idea at all?
idea.
Okay.
So there's I don't know if people have this experience. Well, I like to have useful things around the house. So I mean, not that you're
Wow.
not useful, Zori.
Wow.
I just right now
Wow.
I don't know if I need a 3D printed version of you in my home yet. Maybe a little one to remind me of you.
You could put me in your pocket and always remember me.
Oh, that's something we can psychoanalyze at a later time.
A good luck totem, right? Like I'm thinking of Inception, the movie Inception, right? Like your little good luck totem
Yeah.
to make sure you're still in reality,
I'll
right?
channel
We'll
my
do that.
inner Zori with my little Zori in my pocket.
Yeah.
But I don't know if people have had this experience where like you're just like doing random things in your house and you're like, man, I wish I had this thing that would do this one very specific task that I need to make my house a little bit more functional, like a specific, I don't know, thing to organize your wires or things like that. Like I just want to build like
Mm,
create practical things I need in my house that I can't find online to buy.
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I need two of me, so if ever you could, I actually think Zori is going somewhere. If you could print another me, that would be something I could do to help me with things,
Get
right?
me a partner.
Ooh, I think we're a little far away from this kind of biotech 3D printing.
Maybe we got to try it out. We got to start
I have
somewhere,
faith. I have faith in you.
And this is actually that totem comment was making me think of something I'm nerding about. Zori, if you're okay, jump in
Mhm.
there. So
Go
I have
for
been
it.
playing Hades 2, right? Hades 2, are y'all familiar with Hades 2, the
Hmm.
platform? Of course you both are, right? However, it's really been getting me connected to how I see mythology and how passionate I've been about mythology throughout the course of my life and how it's about storytelling and fantasy and beings creating these, marvels in a universe, if you will, and then also doing these incredible feats. And it's also stories about relationships and people tapping into their infinity and beings being able to overcome their circumstances and transcend beyond, what is thought to be capable. And so Hades too has really been unlocking my passion for mythology and maybe even on a larger scale, spirituality. I've been looking more into African spirituality, especially around like Orisha and other like African practices and belief systems. And so it's really been tying into at least how I see the world and in a spiritual sense. So that's been something that has been really helpful for me. And also I've been nerding out quite a bit, especially through like video gameplay. So yeah. I don't know if I made sense with any of that, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome that you are taking so much out of like the story of Hades, because whenever I talk with clients about Hades, they're always talking about like, I'm practicing my frustration tolerance right now by playing Hades, and so it's such a different I feel like it's such a different view on the game sometimes. I think whenever my clients talk about it, it's never about like the story or the mythology or anything. It's about like, I just want to beat this level. I've worked so hard to get to this point and I want to like keep ascending, and I just keep getting knocked down and trying to not be frustrated about things. So it's such a different perspective you're bringing right now.
Yeah. Thank you. And like that word like ascension, right? That makes so much sense when people think about it because people see it as like performance and productivity, but also the game talks about how being supernatural is really about perfectionism, but the reality is that perfectionism doesn't exist. So I even see like a parallel there. And you have some cool clients to be playing Hades because none of my clients have taken my recommendations on any of those games. So kudos to you. Shout out to your client. Shout out to you for suggesting it, right? Um, yeah, send on my way to consult or something. Like someone needs to talk about these things. I don't know.
I've been geeking out. Everyone who knows me or everyone who has talked to me recently, even people who don't know me, have probably heard of me talk about my Lord and Savior, Princess Donut, aka a character from the Dungeon Crawler Carl series by Matt Dinman, I believe. Anyway, it was one of those books where I was just like, oh, I guess I'll just start reading this because, it's over the summer. I'm trying to read more books for fun, trying not to just get so stuck into the research brain over the summer. And I will say this is one of those books where the book is good, but the audiobook makes it. The guy who does the voices, he does all the voices. If you didn't know that he did all the voices, you would believe that there's at least like two or three other people there who are doing voices as well. But anyway, it's really good. It's basically think the Hunger Games meet Dungeons and Dragons and throw in a little anti-fascism and shake it up with a bunch of aliens basically, and you get Dungeon Crawler Carl. Oh, and a talking cat. Throw in a talking cat too. um Technically also a talking goat, but that's anyway. It's basically about this guy who is a normal guy. He's chilling at home with his ex-girlfriend's cat. um the ex-girlfriend's cat jumps out the window. He chases her barefoot, no, technically in Crocs in his underwear, out the window to like catch her. And as soon as he does, the world literally gets crushed around him. Like anyone who's like inside of a building gets crushed. And everyone else who's been outside the building are the only people who are alive. And essentially, this alien voice is just like, hello, we sent you this message saying that we're taking over your world. No one responded. So, hey, we're here to take over your world. But if you want to have a chance of getting your world back, you can play this game. Want to play a game? And if you survive all these levels of this game, you get your world back. Doesn't that sound fun? And also, we're gonna, make this a reality TV show for the rest of the universe because why not? And it's essentially it's like the Hunger Games, but like a little bit campier, but with Dungeons and Dragons. I'm probably not selling it well, but
You are.
I highly recommend. It's currently there are 8 books out. I think it's supposed to be a in total of 10 books. I just finished the 8 book yesterday, so I'm like, come out book 9 now. But I think book 8 just came out this year, so book 9 is probably not gonna come out until like next year at least. And I'm just like, I'm already having withdrawals. But anyway, I highly recommend if you want something, and especially for our listeners who are just like, I don't have time to read. That's where the audiobook comes in to play. And honestly, this is one of those books where I would recommend either just listening to the audiobook or reading it while listening to the audiobook because it's so great. But yeah, and also there's like a lot of like political stuff. This is one of those books where there's probably gonna be some like dude bros who just like, why does everything have to be political? Or be like, this book isn't political. And then even the author's just like, dude, this book is political. So yeah. The only downside is that the main character is a straight white man, but we can't be perfect.
It sounds pretty
Compromise.
cool.
No, it does sound really cool. And you sold it well, Zori. I was trying not to look it up as you were as you were talking, but it sounds right up my alley. It sounds right up my alley. So, 8 books is what I'm hearing you say. 8 books, okay.
Mhm.
How long have you been reading the series?
So I've been listening to the audiobook,
Okay.
and I think I started maybe in June. And
Of this year, right?
yeah, starting yeah of this year.
Oh, you wasn't playing.
It's just like la 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 la.
You hit play and that's it. I love that. It must be compelling. I love it.
It was just like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? Are they gonna survive? Obviously, they had to survive to a certain extent, or at least Carl has to because there's 8 books. But yeah, no. Though the majority of the story is told through Carl's perspective, which I think can sometimes be hit or miss. I really do like that there are multiple points throughout the story where you find out that his perspective was either wrong or they do switch perspective every now and again where you're like, oh, this is something that Carl doesn't know, but we as readers do know. And how is this going to play into things? And then also, like, because you know something that Carl doesn't know, you're hearing his like mind, his thoughts or whatever about like what he does know, and you're just like, no, buddy, no, you're wrong. Don't do that. Don't do that. Ooh. And yeah, I just really like it. I've been telling everyone it's like one of those books where I will say this: if you are uncomfortable with swearing or jokes about foot fetishes and stuff like that, then maybe this isn't the book for you. But if you don't mind an AI, like an actual AI who is becoming sentient and who may have a foot fetish for the main character, then let's go for it. Let's go.
I'm about to get the book.
Now he's like,
We're
what
getting
the fuck?
it.
I mean, it's pretty cool because I was thinking about how it's interesting where it sounds like it's coming from like the perspective of like the dungeon master. If you happen to have all this
Ooh.
information about what's going on in the world, and then you kind of are privy to also like what the characters are thinking and doing. So I imagine that's exactly what's like. I've never been a dungeon master, but I can imagine like creating this world and knowing what's going to happen or what the next series of events is going to be, and then I'm just watching my characters like fumble around in it, and then be like, "Oh no, you definitely went the wrong way. You definitely should not have like slayed that guy right there," you know? So I can imagine like
Hmm.
how funny, but also like frustrating that perspective could be.
Yeah. And like I'm at this point where I'm just like, oh no, if any of my favorites die, I don't know if I can handle it.
Game of Thrones style, right? I don't know. or Attack on
Yeah, I
Titan.
mean, like that's where the Hunger Games part comes. People are going to die. Spoilers: people die.
I like that framing as well, Natalie. Around like being a dungeon master, having an outside lens of like the bigger picture. I actually was thinking about simulation theory as well.
Mm.
As when you're kind of describing this, or what was another one? Three body problem. I don't know if any
Oh
of you are
yeah,
familiar with that.
that's what I was
But I
thinking
was,
too.
yeah, I was thinking that as you were describing it. So it definitely sounds like something up my alley, even before the AI and their particular interests. You sold it great. You sold it great. Listen, the people who need it will need it. Okay.
Yes, we all need to appreciate Princess Donut's sass. But anyway, I could talk all day long about this book, but that's not why we're here. Um, Before we go into why we're here, though, Breon, again, you have been our first guest, also our only guest. Natalie and I don't have that many friends, so thank you for being here.
Don't tell people that. We need to we need to continue to be mysterious.
We're in good
No, we
company.
have
We're in good
so many
company.
friends. We have so many friends.
Plethora.
Anyway, uh, mind giving us and our listeners just an update about like what life has been like for you in terms of just especially your research because the last time you talked to us you were talking to us about your dissertation and about how especially for gamers of color there's different things that they get out of gaming.
Yeah, no, thank you. And again, I am very thankful to be here speaking with you and Natalie. It's such an honor. And I also want to say that it's a good opportunity to just connect with people, to build friendship, companionship, and to talk about the things that I don't get an opportunity to talk about in my life as a professional, right? And so since my last visit, a lot of what I have been able to do is do more presentations around the work, particularly around how video games connect to our identities as people, but then also people with marginalized identities. That has been something that's been really helpful to present at several conferences. I've been working with folks who do gaming research, but also do things related to like social justice and being able to create community and connection in certain groups. So recently I presented at the MagFest. Are either of you familiar with the MagFest at all?
Mm-mm.
No,
Oh, cool. Well, so it's
tell
like
us about it.
another, yeah, so it's like another maybe nerddom conference, kind of similar to Anime Con, Dream Con, all the cons, etc., where it looks at forms of media, so video games, TV shows, music, and then it also extends to things like animation. Uh, I'm kind of doing it a disservice about how many elements it incorporates into the conference, but it was a really good opportunity to meet other nerds. In particular, I was invited by Javon Gord, who is someone who does a lot of work with like blurs. So have you
Mhm.
ever heard of like BlurredCon, et cetera?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, so he does a lot of work with black nerds in particular and some of the things that they're interested in. And so I was able to go present my work to people who are not academics. There were some academics in the space, right? But it was people who play video games, people who have engaged with video games for most of their lives. And what was really rewarding about that conference was I got to hear from them about their experiences playing video games, but then also how they appreciated me even talking about it because they never thought about some of the questions that were asked. But then also thinking about the context and when why am I playing video games? What is it doing for me? And also like what am I taking away from this experience as I'm navigating this virtual environment consistently, and then I have to go live this dual life of being in a physical environment where maybe there are some parallels of how I'm showing up. So it's really cool to be at a conference in that way, being able to engage with people and also being a little bit more on the ground. I don't want to describe it in a hierarchical way, but just being in the ground with people who play the actual video games rather than me have to theorize and convince people to kind of buy into some of that work. But on the more academic side, I have been able to continue to talk about my dissertation. I have been published for some of the work that I did as my dissertation. So recently, I was able to publish with the Journal of Creativity, and that's essentially talking about how marginalized people use gaming as an opportunity to build community in certain networks, Discord, for example, but then also how finding community online and party members, people you get to play with, has been restorative and in some regard transcendent for a lot of people. And so I think that isn't kind of important to think about how video games are facilitated for our sense of joy, our sense of compassion, and more importantly, our sense of connection. And it's been really rewarding to kind of see people buy into that message and to at least engage with it and teach me about their sense of connection as they're playing video games. So that's been, a little bit of what's been up since we last got to connect, especially on the video game front.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you were saying that, you didn't want to talk about it as a hierarchy, and I don't think we should talk about it as a hierarchy, but I do think it's important to highlight the importance of you sharing your research with a non-academic group of people, because I think oftentimes in academia, we as researchers, we do all this research. Some of it is really great, some of it's really important, but it doesn't even get down to mental health professionals, let alone everyday people. So the fact that you're going to these conventions, these cons, and sharing that information with people and having them have these aha light bulb moments where they're just like, wow, I never thought about that. I think that's super cool. And I think you're doing what we keep saying that we're supposed to be doing as researchers, which is disseminating our information to the people who need it the most.
Yeah. Yeah. Great comment, right? Like I agree. And I think what they say, like 7 years, it takes 7 years for something to be in the academy, and then it comes down, and then that's when it reaches other people, the practitioners and the people most relevant for it. And I think that is something that I want to continue to demystify because I come from the people that we are, engaging with and looking at as participants in our work. And I, kind of describe them as collaborators because I'm learning from them, and hopefully I'm imparting something that I've learned in my journey as well. And I also want to speak about this aspect of, being able to connect with the actual gamers. That's been something that's really rewarding for me because as I've embraced this identity as an academic, I've also had to learn to kind of center in on who I've been throughout my life and what has been helpful for me. And being a video game player is something that's important for my identity. And so it was nice to kind of come back to people who's like, yeah, I get this. You don't have to explain it so deeply because it makes perfect sense to me because I do these actual things. I also was able to kind of talk to folks at a webinar, Good Work, who is headed by Dr. Ferguson and Dr. Dayton Haywood, and they allow for me to talk about how gaming can be a metric for resistance, even. And that was something that was really rewarding to get some feedback from participants who kind of just shared that they've never been able to talk about their experiences playing video games, but they never looked at it as like, this is something that's keeping me grounded so that I don't feel depressed, that I don't feel super stressed, and I don't succumb to all the atrocities that are happening around us in the world, right? It gives me a space to be able to center on myself and center on the things that I care about and the people who also care about those same things while having fun, right? So that is something that has been uh, purposeful for me because people are like, hey, keep going, keep doing this work. I'm appreciating your perspective and I want to be sure to help with that. So I feel very grateful to have that opportunity.
Yeah, and that's awesome because I think about my journey as a therapist, and one of my big things is that I also identify as a gamer, and been a big part of my life, and it continues to be a big part of my life. And when I started my career, I wanted to bridge this gap between mental health and the gaming community because there's just so much stigma, so much misinformation that it was so hard to make mental health care accessible for gamers in that community as well, and not just working on like problematic video gaming issues, but like also issues that come about in gaming communities in general because there's such a unique culture. And what's so cool about your work, Brian, is that like you're the bridge that I'm building, right? So you are supplying the bricks for me to build the bridge from mental health to the gaming community. So I think I really appreciate you in this conversation and being able to do this work because I don't think I could do what I'm doing without like academics like you who care about this topic. Because there's lots of clinicians I've met where like they absolutely do not care about this and they don't understand it and they don't want any part of it. And so I think like being able to find other people who are like minded and really care about making mental health care accessible to like marginalized communities, especially the gaming community, I think that's so amazing to just, be able to come across somebody like you who also has this passion.
Thank you, Natalie. I really appreciate that. And I feel the same about you, right? Like we need each other, the clinical side, the academic side, or research side. And more importantly, like we're coming from a space of having experience and knowing why it's important. So I appreciate that we're still fighting for something that is not only important for us, but also important for the people we come across, we support. And I think the more of us that are doing it, including yourself, including Zori, it's going to be easier and easier. So thank you as well for, even being centered on some of the work that you're doing, but also considering how my work can complement that. I'm thankful. So thank you.
Awesome. And thank you. So switching gears a little bit, our main topic for today is talking about groups in gaming. And initially, when Natalie and I first came up with this idea, I feel like Natalie has a very different experiences with groups than I do. And so when we talk about groups in gaming, we're talking about a lot of different things. We're talking about couch co-op. So essentially where you're playing video games with someone who's right next to you. We're talking about online co-ops where you're playing video games with someone who maybe across the world with you. And there's probably other different types of groups that come into play when we're thinking about video games as well. But I guess, again, thinking back to how video games can bring us closer to each other, what comes to mind for both of you when you think about groups and when you think about video games?
Yeah. There are a couple things coming up for me now. I don't know if you wanted to go.
No,
like,
go ahead.
well, I think, maybe kind of getting a little bit into my history of playing with other people, because this is something that's relatively new in a group setting. I think I might have mentioned this last time we were able to connect, is my journey playing video games with others was really about power, especially within my home. Like growing up as a younger person, being in a space where there were maybe things that were not the greatest happening, and you feel like you didn't have as much power and opportunity to change your circumstances, you find a space where you actually do have some autonomy, you do have some control. And in some regard, when we're thinking about co-op play, a lot of mine was local. So local arcades, people coming over from the neighborhood, hearing that you got the latest Dead or Alive or Killer Instinct or whatever video game, and that being like a focal point of not only you interacting with people, but depending on the relationship, it could be something that makes you feel more empowered or maybe even disempowered sometimes. And I know for me, it started off really competitive, right? Like I'm proving to you that I have value because I'm able to beat you in this video game, especially if you're someone who, in some regard, had more social power or maybe in power in other circumstances over me. I know that's how it kind of started off of like competition and let me show you that I am valuable in this space at least. And then it kind of transitioned into being more collaborative and being more exploratory because a lot of people, I don't know if you all if y'all stream at all, but I've been learning that people literally watch people play video games all the time. And I started to
That's
realize,
me.
yeah,
That's me.
And I've streamed before. Dory and I are on
wow.
opposite ends of the spectrum.
Wow, I love that because I had to think about in this context too. Like my mom, who visited recently, she would talk about and how she would feel calm hearing me smash buttons and playing a video game because she knew I was where I was supposed to be. But then also was grounding for her to be like, all right, my son is exploring something and I might be interested in it too. So she was here recently and she was watching me play South of Midnight, which we talked about last time. Yes, thank you. Yes. Yes, we talked about that last time, right? And she was just so into watching me play the game. And then I felt like it was a vicarious sort of like action for her because not only is she getting the story, but she's tense, she's watching me jump over
Mhm.
buses, all these things, but
I
she's
feel
also
like that's
getting
such a good game to play with your mom.
it is. And she still like calls me asking me where am I at in the story, chapter 5, by the way. I'm not as far as I would like to be, but the semester is over. We're good. But I say this what to say, right? Like she connects with me on a deeper level by something I'm engaged in, something that feels valuable, but something that has a rich narrative where other people can take pieces of what is being offered and apply that to their own experience. So even the aspect of like stigma within South of Midnight, that was very reflective to my mom because she's talking about her experiences growing up in the South and then she's talking to me about it. So it's definitely like a catalyst now for like connection and then also collaborating with people. And I maybe want to pause because I feel like I'm blabbing too much, but yeah, it's just been something that's been really helpful for me as of late. I've been playing with friends, and it's really started when I went through my PhD program. I was struggling, I was lonely, I was sad, and then one of my friends was like, "Hey, why don't you play online with us?" And I had already been accustomed to being in overly competitive environments, and also environments that were racist, homophobic, all the things, right? So I didn't even cut my mic on oftentimes when I played video games. But then I had an experience where people were uplifting, people were kind to each other in a space. And in a video game, we weren't so bogged down by performing and being good. We were just having an experience together. And I think that kind of changed things for how I engage with video games since then, but also how I collaborate and play games with others. So, yeah.
I'm so happy that you had that experience, Breon, because I've had that experience where like I just don't turn on my mic. I used to play Call of Duty, and that is a toxic, male dominated space, and the culture there is, I don't know, the culture is about ripping people down and like calling people names, but I like playing first person shooters, so that was one of the main games I played for a little while, but I couldn't be on the mic. I couldn't say anything to people because the moment that they heard that I was a girl, they would start calling me names. They would start saying all these awful things. And so like, they already said awful things when I didn't speak, right? So if they were to find out I was a woman who was also gaming and in their space, I would have gotten, some pretty nasty responses. And then I found other gaming communities where I was able to talk and it was so well received and I was able to join in that community and that was very restorative to me. So I'm so glad that like you had that different experience where like you were able to find people who welcomed you to speak and be present in that group.
Mhm. And yeah, I am a child of the 90s, so uh stranger danger with online players. But what you were talking about with your mom, it reminded me of a few different relationships. One, playing Tomb Raider with my mom, but then also with one of my older cousins who unfortunately I don't talk to as much anymore. But I remember going over to his house when I was younger, and he and his friends, they would be playing Sonic the Hedgehog game, and I would just like come in and be like, "Hi, I'm here." They probably hated it, but whatever. It's still like when I think about that cousin in particular, that's like one of the most fondest memories. And hearing you talk with your about your mom and playing South of Midnight, and for those of you who either weren't here when I was badgering Breon to play South of Midnight and the last time I was here, South of Midnight focuses on a young African American girl, Hazel, in I believe Louisiana. It has a lot of Southern folklore in it, a lot of beautiful Southern music in it as well. Essentially, the people who created it, they did their research, and a lot of it has to do with stigma, family, curses, generational trauma, essentially. And the main through line is the love between the daughter and the mom. So, the child and the mom. So, like, just hearing that, like, you and your mom connected, it just like warmed my heart about that. Also, I love when people play things that I recommend. So, yay.
Yeah, and Natalie, thank you for affirming me. And also, I'm sorry that was your experience. I'm happy you were able to connect with people who allows you to be human in this space as well. And absolutely, Zori, like it's been a couple of games you put me on that I've been playing as of late. What was it? This Cosmic Sisterhood of the Wheel. That's
Yeah,
also what I'm playing as
yeah.
well, right? So even that is like tethered to my spirituality and me developing in so many areas. So that also goes to this aspect of connection, right? Like I have a connection with you, I trust you, and you know me, and so that allows for you to point me in a direction of connection that might feel just as stimulating, just as engaging. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about as well. Like it may have started off as sexism, homophobia, bigotry being aimed at you over a mic or even through chat. I'm thinking about my time in League of Legends where they would just type the craziest stuff as we are playing with each other. And it's like we're on the same team, right? And so having those experiences, you know what you need thereafter, and you continue to do the brave work of like maybe finding it or at least finding semblance of it. And I think that's kind of what was important for me is like don't give up, keep finding the connections that you're seeking And if you have one example of it, you can do it again. So at least that's what I'm kind of tethering this to as I'm hearing you both speak. So thank you.
So you guys do have different experiences with groups than I do. So I have primarily been in online gaming groups for most of my life. The only kind of like local co-ops I've done were usually with like my siblings because we had to share like the Nintendo or share the PlayStation. So that was our local um, co-op games. But I've done lots of like MMOs growing up, so massive multiplayer online games. Um, and then that branched into, so it starts with like the PC online games that way, and being part of those kinds of communities and those kinds of groups. And then it expanded into like console games. So I had lots of gaming friends on like PlayStation and less so like on Nintendo growing up, just because there's less like online accessibility with Nintendo. But it was a lot of like PlayStation community people that I was playing with. Um, and I think those experiences are very different. If you know me, I'm kind of like a group dynamics nerd. So when I reflect back on like the different groups that I've been in, I really think about like the stages of like forming a working group with people. And so like, those 5 stages of forming a group is um forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. So forming, you start a group, you gather people around, and then storming is usually when you guys are just trying to figure out how to work with each other. So usually that's when conflict comes up, people get upset, there's drama. And then there's norming, where you start to figure out like, okay, this is how people work, this is kind of the culture of this group. I'm kind of getting used to working with these people. And then performing is when you start to really like optimize with people, and you're just like, okay, I know how people work, I know how I work, so this is how we collaborate, and we're able to be very productive. We're a good team together. And then adjourning, which is the sad part of it, is that at some point all groups kind of end. Um, and so I've been through like all those phases of groups with different kinds of gaming groups online for a long time. So it's very interesting to see like how that has really changed for me growing up. In the online spaces, these groups are usually like in the form of like guilds or clans. I guess the simplest would probably be like party groups, raiding groups, things like that. So like that's kind of what I'm used to. I'm used to just like meeting people online, trying to see like, do I jive with them? Do they jive with me? Can we work together for whatever goal we're trying to achieve in this game? And then we start optimizing, we start having a lot of fun, because now we're like getting all the things that we're trying to get together or achieving the objective together. And at some point, the group just kind of fizzles out because either the game is no longer cool, or we get old, we age out of that game, and things like that. I know, Zori, you have such a
Not
reaction
getting
to that.
old. Not
Like,
getting
oh,
old.
I kind of rattled in my chair too. Oh,
Well,
it's
so
happening.
it happens. So, like, one of my oldest memories of, like, being in a guild, did you guys play Neopets growing up?
Yes. All mine died.
Wait, hold. Are we talking about the handheld ones where
No,
you
no.
had like? Yeah,
It was,
no, sorry.
Okay.
it was online.
So so explain it for Breon and the rest of our listeners who apparently did not have good childhoods.
I will say, I think Neopets may have came out during the age where internet was like still on like dial up. Um,
Yes,
so
it did.
yeah, I think a lot of people had to go to the library to play Neopets. Um,
Yeah,
so
So essentially, there were these like magical, I guess similar to Pokemon, but they weren't Pokemon. And you could adopt the Neopets and then you would take care of the Neopets. Unless you were one Zori who Neopets kept getting sick or dying. I don't know if they could die, but I think they could run away. I think mine ran away. um, but I think you could correct me if I'm wrong, Natalie. You could like join like groups or whatever and
so
like trade Neopets.
yeah, so they had guilds. that you could join. So, like, just people who you meet online wanted to form a group together, and then they help you, like, get stuff. They help you do, like, events and things like that. And I think, like, you make friends with them. You could also trade Neopets, too.
Okay.
So, that's kind of the premise of the game.
Is there like, well, okay, so I only have Tamagotchi and, Pokemon, Digimon maybe as a point of reference. Was there like a battle component to this? Like, was there, you know,
No, so I guess there was kind of a arena if you wanted to do the
yeah,
arena, but usually it was more like there were
This is
mini
just
games.
about being cute.
Yeah, there were mini
Yeah.
games. So you could take your pet and do like these mini games on Neopets. And so like doing the mini games was how you accumulate money, and then you accumulate money so that you could buy stuff for your pets, so you could like paint them different colors, you could buy clothes and accessories. Um you could, I don't know, you could get adopt new pets, things like that.
Yeah, it was I don't know, like Club Penguin or Disney's, what was it, Town or whatever. It's like that same era of
okay, okay.
things.
I remember Zoomtown. I remember, right? I need to look into this. I'm surprised I missed this portion of it. It sounds like it was up my alley, right? I don't know how I missed this. Neo Pets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Neopets.
I need to be taking notes while I'm talking to you. Neo Pet.
I mean it was very, I felt like it was very like young girl oriented. So depending on like how old you were at that time and like stuff like that. But yeah, all mine either died or they ran away.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I would have liked this.
Yeah,
I would have liked it for
Yeah.
sure. So
it was
yeah.
But
definitely a
sorry,
wholesome
Natalie,
game.
we went on a tangent.
No, that's
As
okay.
always.
Can I be on a tangent too? Because something you shared, Natalie, I was really curious about. I don't know if we'll get into it as we're kind of talking, but I didn't want it to get too far away. But you kind of describe how, in great explanation of like the group dynamics, the stages, right? I am curious when it comes to that journey piece. Like, is there grief that comes with that when you think about some of the friend groups you played with? Because I'm actually dealing with that now. Like one of my friend groups that we played online with kind of adjourned, and it's different, and it's like, well, now I'm back in the digital wasteland kind of by myself in a way. And so I wonder if you've experienced any grief for some of that, but I also didn't want to get us off script, but I was thinking it.
No, I think that's a really good question because I've been through a lot of grief throughout like all these different groups that I've been in. I think in adulthood, I think that's where the grief was most prevalent. I think when you're a kid, you're just kind of like, oh, that's kind of sad. My friend group just kind of disappeared. My guild just disbanded, or nobody shows up to the guild hangouts anymore. But I think so. I guess this is very relevant to right now in my stage of life, because one of the games I talk about a lot that I love, that I play a lot of, is Destiny 2. And what is huge right now in gaming news is that Destiny 2 has finally come to an end. Officially come to an end. The studio has shut down any future developments, any future stories. They already said there's not going to be a Destiny 3, so everyone in the community could just stop asking questions about it. Um, so it was a very like hard break. And then the gaming side of this is Bungie, the studio that creates Destiny and Halo. They had to lay off like half of their developers because half of their developers were devoted specifically to Destiny 2. Um, so this really marks like the end of a game that I absolutely loved and I've been playing for over a decade. Um, and so what came with that is I have a clan that I have been playing with throughout most of my journey in Destiny. And so members have changed throughout time, but there's a core group of people where we have been together in Destiny from like not necessarily like day one, but like when Destiny was just Destiny, like Destiny 1 and not Destiny 2. Like we transitioned from like main Destiny game into Destiny 2 together. Um, and so now we're at the stage where there isn't going to be any more future content. And so we used to spend a couple of nights each week playing with each other. We had one designated like raid night where we got together and we would just do a raid together. Um, And so now we are at this adjourning stage where, okay, there's not going to be a lot of things left to do. We've done a lot of the things. We've been playing this game for a while, so we're at the end. Um, and so I think this is where some of the slow grief has been happening, where like I've watched us slowly play with each other less. We still talk a lot on Discord. We still send each other like memes and stuff, but we're just not playing together as much anymore. And then the raid days started getting really spread out. Where I think like the next dedicated raid day that we have is probably I think in August. And so I think like that's the grief that has been really been hitting me because this has been like a decade long journey that I've had with like this main group of people that are my friends. You know, a lot of them I met online first, but then it became real life friendships. Like we've met up in person, we do hangouts. Um, and now we're just like we still have the friendships, but we're not and I guess quote unquote hanging out each week like we used to be. And I think that's something that I really wrestled with for a while, and trying to let that go because it was such a big part of my life.
I hope I
Yeah,
did not
yeah.
change the tone. Thank you. Sorry, Zori. Yes. Thank you, Natalie, for answering all that. Like, sorry, Zori. Go ahead. Something there.
Oh no, no, no need to apologize. I think that I think what you're talking about, Natalie. I think oftentimes, especially for those for people who don't have this experience or who don't have video games as that part of their life, sometimes it can be like, wait, what? You became friends with people you met online? Like I for me personally, I haven't had that type of group in terms of video games, but I had that type of group in terms of people who I met via Twitter when, Twitter was Twitter before X. And like you said, we still keep in contact. We still have our Discord going on, but we used to have like monthly group Discord fam movie nights, or anytime it was anyone's birthdays, we would have like a movie night. And I think the only thing that we do still do together now is our secret leprechaun, which is like Secret Santa. It just happens in March because we're all broke in December. But it like even it's still something. It's like a tradition. It's still something that was interwoven into your life. And even though everyone still is there, everyone still exists, and you can still get in contact with them, like you said, it's still an ending. It's still like a grieving period of something that brought you all together, something that transcended physical locations, and maybe even brought together people who wouldn't have been brought together any other way. And I think one, thank you for sharing. I think that's also it's really important to have these conversations, especially when we talk about mental health, because again, I think it's so easy for people who don't have these experiences to just be like, "Why are you sad? These are your imaginary internet friends."
Yeah, and I hate it when people say that because I've had parents tell me that, like, "Oh, these my kid's just talking to some person," like, and they're dehumanizing the other person on the other side of that. I'm just like, that's a real person that your
Yeah.
child is talking with. Like, they're really friends with them,
Yeah.
and like, I think that's something that
Yeah,
we
on
can't
both sides
dismiss.
of the spectrums in terms of like safe people and not so
Right,
safe people. Like these are real people.
right, yeah, and like even like, this is how real it is, like, my clanmates came to my wedding, like, that's how big they were in my life, and when we talk about, like, even I have so many, like, funny stories of my clan, like, I love my clan. We're called the Sack of Normies. Uh,
Run that by me one more. This one.
we're called the Sack of Normies, so big shout out to my Sack out there.
Oh, the second
Um,
one. I'll be looking
but
for y'all out there. I
um,
know that group. I'm
right,
sorry.
but, um like we've definitely been through like these stages of like group development together, and it's so real. And I have a client where like she talks with me about like what's going on with her raid group and what feelings come up because that those are real relationships that they're having with people. And so like that drama is so real and it really sticks to you. And like with my client, like I think I really resonated when she started talking with me about like her raid group drama, because it started bringing up things for like when my clan was doing the storming and trying to figure out the norming, right? Like, um, there's a stage that I refer to as the mutiny, and and it's kind of a funny story. It's a little endearing. At the time, it was not funny, uh, but when we got together, I was the leader of the clan, and so like people had gathered around me, and we brought people in. So at first, it started off as like just me and my older brother, and we would play together, and then we started incorporating other people into our clan. But because like it was just me and my brother at first, we decided like, okay, Nelly, you could be the clan leader. And so as we gathered more people, we started like trying to like learn about each other, trying to know more about each other. Like these are like some of my brother's friends and some of my friends, and we've come together. They brought like their siblings or some of their friends. Um, and so like what I refer to as a mutiny, like there's just one day, just out of the blue, I don't even know exactly what happened, but I just saw all the names drop out of the clan. like all of our friends who we've been playing with for like several months just drop out of the clan. And I was like, what's going on? Um at the time our clan name was the Jolly Roger. And so it was very pirate themed.
One Piece.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very, yeah, pirate themed. So that's why it was the mutiny, because I was like, what happened? Why are people just leaving the clan and not saying anything? And then I guess, later, like, it was maybe like a day later, they formed their own clan. And then it was this weird, I guess, like, pick a side. Like, are you staying with Natalie or are you joining the new clan? Um,
Wow.
and I guess, like, long story short, I think, like, we talked about lots of things as a group. We talked with each other what some of the conflict was, what some of the issues were, what did people want in the group. And I think one of the big things was, like, when me and my brother had started this clan, I think what we wanted to get out of it was different from, I guess, where we were headed as a group, but also what some of the other members wanted. And so, like, they wanted to, in a way, like, start new so that we can kind of be on the same page about what we want to do together as a group. And so that's how we started forming our current group, the Sack and Normies. And so that was such a awful time for me though, because I think I was wrestling with, did I do something wrong? Was, you know, c- clearly they had a problem with me, but nobody's telling me about it and nobody's talking to me. And so like I really wrestled with that for a long time. Like I don't think I was bitter toward anybody. I think I was just confused and sad and upset because I thought I had, broken friendships at that point. And so that was part of like our storming and trying to norm, um because I think we wanted different things when we
Mhm.
had started incorporating all these people. So that's kind of a piece of like why sometimes the clan means so much to me, and like for other people where like their gaming groups are so important to them. Like it's because you went through all that crap together and you made it to the other side, and now you're having fun and doing great things together. And you know you that's a big part of your life because you put so much of yourself into those kinds of experiences.
Mhm. No, thanks for sharing. And can I ask how old you were at the time, Natalie?
Oh my gosh. I was like in my mid 20s. I was
No,
not
no.
young.
I mean, well, no. I mean, still, like 20s is like still a developmental age. I feel, or like a developmental like timeline, and the fact that like sure in the moment, obviously there was some things that were probably not being said when people first started to drop out. The fact that y'all it sounds like did eventually communicate and have that conversation is still really impressive, and I think that's something that's admirable to like think about, and to think about how these type of relationships, not only are they good in terms of skill development in game, but also skill development out of game as well.
Yes, yes. Absolutely love that, Zori. And again, thank you, Natalie, for sharing your experience because so many parallels to what I'm actually like experiencing now, right? Like I was able to connect with someone who invited me to the group, and I learned that no one is really playing together anymore. And I'm like, oh, was it me? Was I, too competitive in the space? Because that does happen sometimes when you're, climbing up the ranks and things. Could I have done something differently? Did I harm someone, et cetera, right? And a couple of things you're, sharing, especially around this aspect of like parents, because I have clients who play video games and they receive this messaging from maybe society where it's like, oh, you should be doing something more productive with your time, and maybe you should go out and make some real friends, and maybe you should talk to real people. And I like that you're kind of naming that that's dehumanizing to the other person on the end of I don't know what is it, joystick, right? Possibly on the other end of the online interaction, but I also think that it's dehumanizing for the person sitting in front of you because in some regard you don't see how this is facilitating some sense of enjoyment for them, some sense of coping, stress relief, maybe even imagination. When we think about how we can see ourselves, it allows for us, and kind of going to the point that Zori is making, it allows for us to develop skills. You just headed a whole guild, and although that was online, you had to develop leadership skills, you had to develop norms, you had to manage relationships, and in some regard you had to check in with your own emotional capacity on how you're engaging with people and how people are engaging with you. And you add in doing tasks online where you're doing fun stuff, taking down baddies and bosses, and transfer traveling over the universe and all these other things. Like those are tasks that can be facilitated for understanding yourself, but then also developing certain skills. And that can happen in a virtual space. And so oftentimes people don't see the opportunity for video games to be facilitated for skill building, which essentially, if you're paying attention, we can learn and develop those skills, but then also practice them in so many different contexts. And I think a bulk of my work is like any space that involves human interaction and technology is worth exploring because so much of technology is embedded in how we engage with human relationships, also our development, as you kind of both have pointed out. And right, like as a black gay man, going back to this identity piece, like I've always had to go through the internet to find community, like lovers, friends, etc. Right. So I think more people should be open to just the reality of video games and other technologies impacting us in a way where we could actually take something from it, especially if they are so keen to point out how it can be harmful, right? Well, maybe let's look on the other side of things. What can it help with? So I really appreciate this conversation and thank you again for your vulnerability.
So I think another good question to ask or to think about is, we just talking about like skills, and I just wanted to, from the both of you, what skills do you think playing with others helped you with? Because I know, speaking for myself, again, I don't usually play online with people, but I usually play couch co-ops or local co-ops, with people who are usually in the same room with me. Whether that be games that are usually just for one person, like Tomb Raider, but we like switch back and forth, or other games like Overcooked, where there is supposed to be other people. Those are the type of games I play in terms of like with another person. And at least for me, I realize that those type of games help me with patience, especially with a game like Overcooked. And for those of you who haven't heard or played Overcooked before, it's basically a cooking game where you can play by yourself, but where's the fun in that? And the goal is to create dishes for your customers before time runs out or before people get upset and angry. And I usually play that game with my mom, though I have played it with some other friends before. We decided not to play again just to keep our friendships intact. But I do play it with my mom, and I love my mom. I love her. But that is the game where between levels, she has to be like, "That wasn't very nice." I'm just like, "I'm sorry. I won't yell." She's like, "I did not like how you yelled at me." I was like, you know what? You're right. I should not yell. I got passionate, but that does not excuse the fact that I yelled at you, mother, for not putting the food away quick enough. But yeah, just thinking about that with my mom, and thinking about someone else I used to play video games with, who they were new to video games. in general, or they didn't play video games that often. And just realizing, even for myself, how I m- try to be. I don't know how what's the word, good I was at this, but I try to be patient in the sense of being like, would you like me to give you a hint? Or would you like me to show you what I think you should do? Or would you like me to take a turn? Instead of just being like, go there, that way, you know? And yeah, so I think for me, when I play video games with others, it's a lot about patience. It's a lot about realizing that just because how I play a video game doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right way to play a video game, especially in some of these like open world, open concept, any multiple different ways of reaching a goal type of way. So that's a skills, patience, skill development, anger management, maybe even as well. But what about you two?
It's good ones. Good ones.
I was gonna say I love whenever Zori talks about playing video games with her mom because it's so wholesome, but then at the same time, I feel like it's just so real because I think we all have those experiences where it's like, I love this person, I can't yell at them, but I'm so mad right now. Yeah.
Take care of the pasta. The
Yeah.
pasta is burning, mother.
Yeah. Yeah. That aspect of patience, Zori, I think it's kind of tethered to what I was thinking as well. I think awareness and being comfortable with being inexperienced has been something that has been really helpful for me in my learning, especially, as someone who plays RPGs, role-playing games. That was like my first love into like video game, just technology. Like I could play a video game. Not only could I describe myself and customize myself to a great extent, with like names, outfits, stories, right? I create my own story, all these things, especially when you play RPGs from like PC back in the day, Disciples, Heroes of Might and Magic, all these things, right? And and so there's this element of being able to not only reflect on myself, but then also as I started to play with other people, became more aware. A portion of what I had to become more aware of is like people need different things, and if someone is trying to develop maybe experience points, they need to be patient with themselves, and you also need to be patient if you are. Maybe wanting to help them to get to a certain level. And I actually had this model for me in the group that I joined because they were all first person shooter fanatics. They were great. And I'll be completely honest, I am not good at first person shooter games if there's not someone who plays like a mage. Like if there's not an AoE character, I'm not going to be good at it. So I try to stay with games like Overwatch 2, first person shooter or third person shooter games, Marvel Rivals, right? Like, because there's an element of I don't have to be that good aiming and I know my planning and things. I have this mindset of like an RPG player, like let me set up this bomb here so that they have to go this way, and then I could be more tactical. But I had to learn that in different contexts and different video games, like even with that approach, you still have to learn how to be inexperienced. And I think I've taken that with me through life of like, of course you're not good at this now. Like you're bronze, like you're bronze in this skill set. You're not, grandmaster just yet. You have to build that experience so you get to the next level. And so that awareness allowed for me to kind of one, be patient with myself as I'm learning something new, but then also it helped me with help seeking behaviors and also kind of checking in with where I'm at on the grand scheme of things. So seeing people who seemed really good at these games and saying, "Hey, can you give me some tips on how I can get here as well? Like, can you help me get as good as you are in this space?" And so that takes a certain level of awareness of where you're at, being able to identify that, but then also being able to identify who can help you to get good, if you will. And so that's been really helpful for how I've navigated video game spaces. But then also it's been really helpful for my life because when you really think about it, like that's essentially what we all are doing. We get a new circumstance, a new scenario, a new situation, a new role that we are adopting, and we have to go from being inexperienced in that role into gaining more experience. And sometimes that might require awareness of self, but also awareness of others and who might be helpful in you getting to that next stage. So that's kind of what I'm taking from what you're sharing. It's been very helpful to me.
Yeah, and
Natalie?
I think with all the games that we were talking about, specifically like with co-op games, the skills that we're learning are very social based, and I think also introspective based too. I think whenever we are playing co-op games, I think there's a level of how much about ourselves do we know, and what do I need to work on for myself. And so like that's where you guys are talking about like the patience, talking about like working on your tone of voice, your, like how do you present yourself so that there's still good vibes and you're still trying to learn or be helpful in that space. um, and then I also think that communication is such a big thing that we learn in co-op games, because you're going to meet people you don't want to work with, and I think that's just the reality of life as well. Like, I've had people enter into my clan where, like, oh, I don't really like working with this person because they don't really communicate what's going on in this team-based game. But then they're not insightful enough to be able to reflect on what they're doing and why they're making our like bringing our team down. And so like those are skills that like I needed to learn, like how do I communicate to somebody so that they can try to communicate back to me about what's going on. Trying to speak in a way that's helpful for people. And I'm sure like Zori, you've probably had to figure this out with your mom too. It's like, what is my tone of voice and how could it be helpful or harmful in this moment? Because when you get frustrated, it's hard to have this tone of voice that's helpful for somebody. And
Mm-hmm.
that translates to like the workplace. You're going to have this coworkers that you don't like to work with. And then you have to moderate like your voice whenever you're trying to speak with them and trying to work with them. And so like I think like that's a lot of the things that I think about what we're learning when we are doing co-op kind of games and working within like certain groups, because sometimes we don't get to choose our groups. Like, partner activities, I think sometimes like, okay, that feels a little better, right? At least that's one
Mm-hmm.
person that I'm trying to work with. But then when you enter into a space where it's like, this is a group of people and like, three or more is a group, right? So even just having a third person makes it so much harder for us to figure out like, how do we communicate? How do we continue to have good vibes and things like that? And so the things that we're learning internally too is like, some of it is anger management. Like, how do we manage our frustrations? How do we manage like the feelings that come up? And some of it might be impulse control. How do I not blurt out like, why are you sucking at what you're doing right now? Like, why can't you just like pick up that pasta, right? And I
Like, Mom, you have one job. It's a pasta.
Y'all run a tight ship on that overcooked. I don't know if I need to go off with y'all
Listen,
because I'll be panicking
you
now.
got customers to serve.
I've had the experience too where I'm just like, I said that to my husband, like, why can't you just pick up that plate? Like, it's right there. But that's not helpful when you just like say that thing that's like in your mind and you just impulsively blurt it out. Like, that's not helpful in this moment.
Get the dishes. Yeah, yeah.
Especially when they have you on like different levels in that game where you can't reach something and just like, I need you to send me pasta now. Oh my
I feel like we could do a whole episode on Overcooked and just our experience on there because I've tried to play it with multiple people and it's a good game to introduce to folks who want to get like acclimated to playing video games or just doing something interactive at maybe like a party or something. And then as those levels increase and you are the most experienced cook in the kitchen, what do, right? So
gosh.
I don't know. That's a good example y'all are raising because that game definitely will bring out the communication skills for folks. And yeah, some people just run a tight ship in there. So love
Yeah.
those points.
I'm, th- I'm thinking about when Natalie and I play Stardew Valley.
Oh,
there are things that we need to work on.
I think we just need
wait,
to work on being on the same page about what our goal is. And maybe that's a highlight of Stardew Valley for us. Like, I'm trying to get things, I'm trying to advance in this game, and Zori is out there just like schmoozing with the townspeople, and I'm trying to buy a
What?
backpack.
They give you stuff. Listen, I'm just trying to get to know our neighbors. I'm trying to find out the lore. I'm trying to find out the gossip. And yes, maybe I want to buy a loaf of bread, Natalie.
y'all, can I say something without y'all judging me? because there was a One Piece reference earlier today, right? Now that I think you
Mm-hmm.
made that.
Yep.
Okay, so that was the first time I was like, whoa, haven't watched One Piece yet, so don't judge me.
Mm.
But then also, I did not know Stardew Valley was cold. Oh,
It is.
Yes,
okay.
you can. I mean, you can play it by yourself, but our last episode, for those who didn't watch it, highly recommend watching it either on YouTube or Spotify, where you can see the actual video gameplay of it. Natalie and I play Stardew Valley co-op. We called it our beach episode because one, it took place on the beach, and also, in true anime fashion, that filler episode that always happens on a beach. Yeah, Natalie and I learned, we gotta be on the same page in terms of goals. We have different things in terms of money, apparently. I wanna again be in relationship with people, and Natalie just wants to get things done.
Maybe we can invite you onto our farm in the future and you can join in with this chaos.
Please, please, because now I'm sitting here thinking about Animal Crossing, and
Don't get me started on Animal Crossing.
yeah, I'm just leave that there because my island and my islanders, I'm not sure if they've given up on me, right? But it's been some time. It's been some time since I connected with them, and I remember people could come visit your island. So I guess that makes sense now that I'm thinking about the Stardew Valley. But I did not know, and definitely am gonna go back and watch that episode now because. Yeah, yeah, so much learning today. Thank y'all. It's like, thank y'all. Uh, I guess I was kind of thinking because you spoke about this, Natalie, and I know, Zora, you kind of talked a little bit about some of this, right? The gaming relationships being able to transcend beyond. You mentioned someone, your friends coming to your wedding after
Mm-hmm.
playing online for 10 or so years, right? I've worked with people, and I still work with people who have become friends through video game play alone. I have friends who I've never met, but we played video games for like 20 years together, right? Wow, I said it out loud. So I said, just want to say, um, what could be something to tell, or what do you tell parents and maybe people just in general to highlight this transcendence that can occur when people are just invested in the relationship, even if that comes in an online medium or through video gameplay? Like, what can you tell people about those relationships and how important they are?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, that's the only thing I'm thinking about because we have different experiences, and it sounds like we've landed into, hey, this is still important. It still helps us in our physical world experience, and I think sometimes people don't realize that that's important. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I don't know if I'm making
Yeah.
sense of that
Yeah,
long.
yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I guess this is me being an online gamer for so long. I have so many wild stories about how like these online experiences transcend just being online. Like one of my good friends that I used to play with, he actually met his current wife in one of the games that we were playing, and she lived in California. I'm in Illinois, and my friend's in Illinois, but they had connected over a video game. We all played together, and then he went over there, met her, they did some long distance dating, and then they got married at some point. So like things like that happen, and it's wild. And I think parents hear that and they're like, oh my god, I don't want that happening to my child. But I'm just like, is that so bad though? Because I have met, especially in light of post COVID, there's lots of kids who have recognized that the people that they really connect with don't always live in their immediate circle. They don't live like in
Mhm.
their neighborhood or even their town. So I had a client that I was seeing. He was I think he was 16 or 17 at the time. But he lived in a small town in Illinois. Like they couldn't even find a therapist for him in that town. They had to reach out to me, so that I could meet with him because he was a gamer and nobody really spoke his language. Um, and I spent a lot of time talking with his mom because she was just like, there has to be something wrong. He must be depressed. He's like in his room all the time. He's always on his computer. He doesn't want to like talk with like his friends at school anymore. He doesn't want to, talk with us. But when I really started talking with him, he came to this conclusion during COVID that like I'm not actually really good friends with any of the people at my school. Like we just don't
Mm,
connect. Like he was big into gaming and everybody there played sports. And he was like sports are cool, I guess, but I really like gaming. I really like building things like online. I like video editing, I like streaming, like he was very much in the gamer community and there weren't many people in his town that related to him. And so he during COVID he met a group of people who not only like played the same games that he did because so he played Destiny 2 as well. So that's we connected really well. But
mm,
at at that time, like Destiny 2 community has shrunk a lot since the beginning. And so to meet like other people who play Destiny 2, it was almost like a secret handshake. It's like, oh my God, you play this game that some people think is dead, you know? And so like for him, he really connected with like guys that were around his same age that lived in different states that played the same games that he did and were interested in the same things that he was, and he wasn't going to meet that in his community in the town they lived in. So he
mhm,
wasn't depressed, he wasn't antisocial. He just wanted to have more meaningful relationships with people. And so that's something that I had to talk with his mom about, that like, hey, these are real people that he's meeting and he connects with them so much better than anyone else in his neighborhood. And then, you know, I think this is maybe a generational thing, but it almost seemed inconceivable for him to not want to hang out with his childhood friend anymore. And I was explaining that like just because you spend a long time with somebody doesn't mean that that is necessarily a meaningful friendship with somebody, right? There are different
Mhm.
levels that we want to connect with people, and just because you've been friends for a long time doesn't mean you're connecting on those levels. And so
mhm,
I think that's where like online gaming provides that space sometimes where like you do get to connect with people. Like the first level of connection is like you're playing a mutual game. You care about this game just as much as like another person who you are interacting with. And so like that's what starts building the bridges of friendship that feel more meaningful for people than just like somebody that you knew since you were 5.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. And I think you also mentioned this, Breon, as well, where, adding on to like what Natalie said, that sometimes for some people, especially people in the LGBTQ plus community, the people that they meet online are often, especially geographically, if there's either it's difficult to find other people with those identities, or maybe they come from like a small suburb, like Natalie was saying, sometimes those people are the people that they can relate to as much as well. And I think, at least my experience working with parents, um, and their kids online in general and making connections online is, one, have that conversation about, like, obviously stranger danger, don't give out your location, don't agree to meet up with someone, that type of stuff. But also, take it as an opportunity to like connect with your child and that, or loved one, because sometimes it's not even kids who are still like dealing with this. Like I remember, again, this wasn't even like a gamer group, but this were people who I met on Twitter, and we created this like tight bond. I remember when I first met some of them, my mom was just like, you're meeting online friends? And I was like, yes, I am meeting them in a public space. Though, like, some of them I've met already. Like, some of them are friends of friends or whatever. So, like, it just has to be like safe. But yeah, these are real people. They're not just our imaginary online friends.
No, thank you both for that. Like, there's levels to it, and kind of be cognizant of like the implication, especially for younger people, and the safety element. But then also, it can be an opportunity to connect with what your kiddo or your young person needs, and I think that is something that's really valuable for people to kind of think about, of like what does this video game provide that may be absent in the physical or lived experience, right? And maybe seeing the benefits around it rather than the detriments, if you will. And I really like this aspect of like cautionary tale for younger people, especially today's age, right? I think this is also why I avoid working with kiddos and children and adolescents because of that dynamic. But y'all, I have young adults who are still going through this experience and still trying to find connection through video games and still, processing what it means for them. And so I really appreciate what you both are sharing because it's so much to talk about. It's so much to really explore still. And I even think now, like, there's a movement in scholarship and clinical work, right? That is saying like, hey, let's look at what video games actually do, not just the pitfalls of it, but more
Mm-hmm.
so the benefits. And I think I really appreciate being a part of that movement of people who not only have the experience of what it can do, but who are sharing that and supporting other people going through that process, young and aging alike, right? Because we know 90-year-olds are still playing video games. So what does that mean for their
Yeah.
process as we're continuing to explore who they are, their transition in life, their development, because that development doesn't stop. And that engagement, what makes you feel good, doesn't stop either. So I think that's important to bring. Thank y'all.
Yeah, and I think it's important to really be able to, I guess, drive the point home to people who aren't normally in these spaces that like gaming communities are real people and we should treat it the same way. And Zori, you talked about like online safety, and this is a conversation I have with parents a lot. It's about online safety with their kiddos and how do we take it out, like shift their mindset, like reframe it so that they understand this and conceptualize it in a way where it's real friendships with real people. When I talk with parents about like navigating Discord, I always tell them you should treat Discord as if they're talking to like their friends, like on the phone or something, or even having them in the room with us. So something that I talk about with parents is like, hey, are they in a closed Discord group where it's like people that they know and things like that? Or is it an open Discord group where it's just anyone could join from the world? And then when your child talks to them, like, do you ask them questions about who they're talking to, like as if you were trying to get to know the friend that they're hanging out with? Right? Because if your child just made a new friend like down the street, you're going to want to know like, oh, what are they like? What's their name? How old are they? What are their parents like? Can I meet their parents? Things like that. And that's what I think we need to try to normalize to parents in this digital age, that like it's important to know these things about the people that your child are interacting with, and to also teach children that like you need to treat them as real people as well. You're not just making friends with strangers on the street and it's fine, right? We're not like, kids aren't out there just like talking to strangers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But kids are going to meet other kids on the playground and maybe they're going to chat and connect. And so like that's where we have to think about like, oh, as a parent, if my child met this person on the playground, I'm going to want to know who this kid is, right? And so that helps parents get involved in those relationships too, to be able to treat it as if like this is a real friendship. And then with real friendship, it's also like there are rules with that, right? Clearly you're not going to be hanging out with your friends until like 3 a.m. And so with Discord, is it appropriate for you to be hanging out with your friend until 3 a.m. and shouting and things like that? If they're okay, if parents are okay with that, then do they need to keep the volume down? Because you
Mm-hmm.
can't be partying at 3 a.m. while other people are sleeping. So I think like that's something important to help parents conceptualize like how this transcends just like being online. Like this is a real person, this is real interactions, and we should treat it as so in the way that we interact with other people and with our kiddos.
100%.
So, Brian, before we end for the day, is there anything else that you would like to share with us, with our audience? Any upcoming stuff that we should be looking forward to?
Upcoming stuff that you all should be looking forward to. Well, we talked a little bit about technology, how that can be a medium for connection. And so I currently have another research study out that I'm collecting data for, looking for participants, particularly same gender loving men of color who use geosocial apps like Tinder, Grindr, Jacked, etc., to find connection. And so that is something that is underway now. And I am still collaborating with folks working on some manuscripts talking about video game technology, but more so how exposure to traumatic stress, which includes racialized distress and interpersonal harm, can be embedded within some video game experiences and physical world experiences. And hopefully that is a manuscript that is accepted, but also I could utilize in some of my teaching. I'm also thinking about like coming up with some workshops. I think there is a need out there for just learning more about video game technology and how it can impact our wellness. And that is something that I'm planning to kind of initiate this fall. So I'm just looking to collaborate with people to learn from folks as well. So hint, wink, wink, just let me know if you all are available. But that is next for me. I think we have some good stuff cooking, and I think more people need access to that information. So that's what's next for me.
Okay. Awesome. And we'll make sure to share your Instagram link with our audience so that they can keep up to date with what you're doing. I know you also, again, disseminate your research so that other people can understand what you're doing as well. So we'll make sure to put that in our description when the episode comes out.
Great. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, folks, that is the end. Thank you again, Breon, so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. You are a friend of the podcast, and we are so, just thank you for being on a tangent with us today.
No, absolutely. Anytime, honestly. I'm looking forward to the next time, and I'm honored to be here with both of you. Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a great chat, a great mini tangent, if you will, and thank y'all for inviting me.
Yeah, and I finally got both of you two in the same virtual room together, so that was really
Yes,
great too.
yes, Natalie. And it won't be the last time, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Therapy on a Tangent. If you liked what you listened to today, please remember on Spotify and or Apple Podcasts to give us a rating and review. And if you're listening on YouTube, to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button. And if there's a topic you would like to hear more about in the future, either put it in the comments or email us at therapyonatangentpod@gmail.com. Again, that's therapyonatangentpod@gmail.com. I'm Zori.
Oh, and I'm Natalie.
And I'm Breon.
And until next time, stay on a tangent. Bye.
Bye-bye.